Thanks for joining us again this week for After Further Review. The nature of this class really has been to address verses that have been misunderstood or misapplied, often verses that are pretty complex and difficult. We've talked about baptism for the dead, the mark of the beast, things of that nature. But today, we're talking about Luke 10:27, love your neighbor as yourself. And the truth is, most of us look at this and say, wow, that is completely foundational. That's as fundamental as it gets. It's also very straightforward. Most of us would look at this and say, very difficult to miss, kind of the point, what's being taught here. But I'm going to suggest it's pretty easy to miss the point. I think for the most part, and this is my confession, I think I've really missed the angle that Jesus is coming from here. I think I've missed a large part of the emphasis of this teaching. And so I want to talk today about why he uses this word neighbor, why they choose this word. And I hope this impacts you the way it's impacted me and quite literally hits home. And I pray that this would invade your home, invade your house, invade your circles of influence, because that is primarily what I believe this text is dealing with. So let's go to Luke chapter 10. I'm going to begin with the text there. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" he replied. "How do you read it?" He answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "You've answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Now, this man knows that his life is being confronted. He's being challenged by Christ. And that's why the text says, wanting to justify himself, he responds, "Who is my neighbor, really?" Because there are some people I show love to and others that I don't. And he's trying to justify those for whom he shows love, and he has rationale for not showing love to others. The text they're citing is Leviticus 19, so I want to get into that first. Beginning in verse 13, it reads, "Do not defraud your neighbor or rob him. Do not hold back the wages of a hired man overnight. Do not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block in front of the blind. But fear your God, I am the Lord. Do not pervert justice. Do not show partiality to the poor or favoritism to the great, but judge your neighbor fairly. Do not go about spreading slander among your people. Do not do anything that endangers your neighbor's life. I am the Lord. Do not hate your brother in your heart. Rebuke your neighbor frankly, so you will not share in his guilt. Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against one of your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord." I've always thought it was strange, that there has to be a law that is made that says don't put a stumbling block in the path of a blind man. I've read that and thought, what kind of people are you? Why do they have to make a law about that? But that teaching really represents something more profound than what's obvious and what's right there in front of us. But overall, this text is dealing with those that are near us, those who are close to us, those who surround us and are in our everyday life. And that's why the text twice in that section said, one of your people, one of those close by. These are those with whom you have interaction every day. I want you to consider this chart real quick, and it kind of represents our circles of influence, more important to this context, our circles of relationships. We have those that are foreign to us, those that we don't know, a people that we know by name only. I'm thinking here of people that I have compassion for. I believe, we're going to come back to that, the starving in another nation, those that need water in other countries, those that are orphans, those that I do not know, but maybe my heart goes out to, those that are experiencing maybe what's relevant to the context of our society today, those that are experiencing extreme prejudice, those that live a different life than I live, those that are foreign to me in a lifestyle that might be foreign to me, right? Acquaintances, those that I am familiar with, but I don't know them at all. Maybe I just know their names. Maybe they go to church with me. Maybe they're in my office, but I don't know them, right? My friends, those that know me, we know each other. and we've invited each other to share life together because we share something in common, maybe. Close friends. These are those, obviously that you rely on, that you have a strong bond with, a strong connection with. You would do anything for one another. And then there's your family and your close family. Those who are the most, for lack of a better word, sacred to you. Those that are in your immediate world, that know everything about you, you know everything about them, and you've committed to one another. You've entered into covenant probably with one another to be there no matter what. You're ready to forgive. You're ready to do everything you can to preserve this relationship. So this is a chart representing my family. But for the most part, when I consider this verse, and who is my neighbor, Luke 10, going back to Leviticus 19, I have actually mostly thought about this outer circle. I think this is what has been emphasized in our life and our teaching in Scripture. We look at this parable of the Good Samaritan, and we're going to kind of finish that here in a minute. And so we think about this outer circle saying, yes, that is my neighbor. That person that is starving, that person that is experiencing extreme prejudice, that person that is hurting on the other side of the world, that is my neighbor. And so we emphasize this outer circle. The question is this: why does Leviticus use the term rhea? And why does Jesus use the corresponding Greek word plesios? Rhea represents one who is near, and this could be in proximity or in relationship. Now, proximity, we're thinking, Jim is my next door neighbor here. I could be thinking about those that are in my immediate circle physically, whether that's in your office at work, those in your church, or those maybe in your neighborhood. One who is near, and this could represent your family as well. He could have used one of these Hebrew words, ger, an outside guest. That would be a foreigner that lives in your community. Nekar, a foreigner. Zur, a stranger. He could have used one of these words, but what is emphasized at this point in Leviticus is your neighbor, those in your immediate circle. And I think that's important to understanding the teaching of Leviticus 19 and when we get to Jesus' teaching about loving your neighbor. And so, instead of emphasizing this circle, what is foreign to us here, what could be emphasized and what is emphasized in Leviticus 19 is rather this circle, your close family, your close friends, and your friends. Why would there be an instruction here that says, love your neighbor, those in your immediate circles of influence, love them as yourself? Now, please don't think we're off the hook here, because Leviticus 19:34 does say, the alien living with you must be treated as one of your native born. Love him as yourself, for you were aliens in Egypt. So the instruction is there. We are called to love those in this outer circle, to have compassion on those that are out of sight. They should not be out of mind. I do need to have genuine concern for the hungry and the hurting in this world, even though they're not in my immediate context. My heart, my compassion should go out to them. And so whether we're in the context of Leviticus 19:18, love your neighbor as yourself, or Leviticus 19:34, also love the foreigner as yourself. Now that's challenging. I hope we come back to that towards the close of this class. But the emphasis of the text that is commonly quoted here, love your neighbor as yourself, actually deals with these inner circles. And this is what is commonly overlooked, because when we read a passage like this, we immediately, I believe, think about those that are outside of our immediate circles. We need to love them also, and so we emphasize that. There's a lot of health to that. Again, we're going to Leviticus 19:34 when we do so. But I think what is largely ignored, and what I have largely ignored, is the word neighbor here. Those that are close, again, either in proximity or in relationship, says this: love them as yourself. So let's continue on with Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan here. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he fell into the hands of robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, took him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have." Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." So Jesus asks the Pharisees who was a neighbor to the man who had been beaten by the robbers. Not that he recognized, oh, this also is my neighbor, I need to show him love. But Jesus says it like this: who was a neighbor, who chose to be a neighbor. And I think the language here is really important because, again, in Hebrew, we have a word for those that are in my immediate circle, those who are close to me. We had plenty of words for the foreigner, the outsider, and the stranger, and Greek operates much the same way. Jesus chooses the word plesios, that means those who are near. He could have chosen a word representing the Gentiles or the nations or those that are distant, the foreigner. But he chooses this word that does represent those in my immediate circle. So why is this challenging to me? I want you to take another look at this chart. If the word neighbor, whether we're in Hebrew or Greek here, represents those who are close to me, those who are in my day-to-day life, what happens in the story of the Good Samaritan is this man chooses to invest in this man who is hurting, who was foreign. He chose to bring him into this inner circle, to be an acquaintance, to be a friend, to be a true family to this man. He brought him in as his own. He brought him from this circle into this circle. The reason this is so challenging to me, and the reason I think we need to think about this, is if we consider our neighbor in the context of these verses as those who are foreign to us, then loving your neighbor becomes about the t-shirts we wear, what we advertise, what we talk about, what we think about, because there's no accountability here. We don't have to engage. I want to tell you a story about a trip we made one time with the church, the college group at Meadowlark. We went down to Casa de la Esperanza in Mexico, and we worked with Gil in the children's home there in Mexico. And when we saw children that had come from very difficult backgrounds, they had stories that were just incredible and heartbreaking. And we sat there and we had breakfast and lunch and dinner, and we built relationships with all of these kids. But I noticed some of the older girls that were there did not engage with the American group. They stood off by themselves and really even occasionally gave us kind of scathing looks. And I was praying about it. I was like, man, what did we do wrong? What's going on here? And I wanted to engage them. I wanted to talk to them about it, but that door really just wasn't open. And one morning, it's so beautiful what happened. One morning, I was praying. I was getting ready to go to the cafeteria for breakfast. And I was praying. I was like, God, open up a door. I'd like to talk to them. I just want to know what's going on. And finished getting ready. I walked into the cafeteria, and it was so bizarre. One of them had saved a seat for me. And I mean, this is after days of not engaging with us at all. So I had this opportunity to eat breakfast with this older group of kids that morning. And, I asked one of them, I just like, you just seem down to me. What's going on? And she said this to me. She said, you know what? Every year, many, many groups come in here and we build relationships. And when they leave, we cry. And I've become accustomed to it. And then she said something heartbreaking to me. And she said, it's like I'm an animal in a petting zoo. And that, it just broke my heart when she said that. And I thought about what having true relationships is and how good it makes us feel maybe to visit a foreign field, to visit those who are suffering in this world, to even get on our knees to work with them, to build relationships with them. But we can leave that environment, come back to our hot showers, come back to our homes, come back to our families. And so it's something we can visit and we can feel good about what we do in this world, whether that's waving a flag for a cause or visiting a children's home across a border. I'm not saying those things aren't good, but they don't require sacrifice. They don't require investment. In the parable of the Good Samaritan, he invests in this man, brings him in to his inner circle, and is a neighbor to him, brings him into this close realm. What I'm nervous that we get in the habit of doing today is sacrificing this realm under the guise of focusing on this realm. But this is where the day-to-day life and activity takes place. Think about those that you have had the greatest difficulty with, those that you have had a break in relationship with, those in your life that maybe a relationship has been severed, that you have a hard time. And if I had to send you on a road trip with them, it's the last person that you need to be, in a car with. That's this group. It's not this group. We don't have those kinds of difficulties with this because we don't have to engage life with them. And so Leviticus 19 and Jesus' teaching in Luke chapter 10 is addressing this. And I'm nervous, and at the cost of maybe repeating myself here, I'm nervous that we sacrifice this by focusing on this when this is where from day to day it really counts. I think we should be challenged to bring this group into this group, okay? But that is not something that is done theoretically. That's not something that's done just in our teaching or in our thought. It must be done in our practice. And so all of this only matters in the realm of those that you can say their names. They're people that are in your day-to-day life, the people that you encounter. This is what Jesus is dealing with here. It's the grace you show to those that lie about you, that gossip about you. It's the forgiveness that you demonstrate. It's those relationships that God has invested you with. This is where we need to make those sacrifices in loving, really demonstrating Christ's love as he loved us. Again, I am not saying that we don't need to focus on this because Leviticus 19:34 is clear enough. We need to love the foreigner, the alien, the stranger also as we love ourselves. But in context, in Leviticus 19, it's those particularly that had entered the camp of Israel. Why? Because they are those that you have had contact with, you've had opportunity with, names that you recognize. The same goes for the Good Samaritan. The Samaritan doesn't simply demonstrate love to this Jewish man and his ideology and his thought and his teaching, but he was presented with an encounter with a particular Jewish man who God had invested him with, and he brought him into this realm of my neighbor. And so that's why I think a verse like 1 John 4:20 is so relevant to this discussion. It says, if anyone says, I love God, yet hates his brother, he's a liar. For anyone who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. Now, I want you to consider what John is trying to convey here. We believe we love God. We sing songs to him. We worship him. Tears flowing down our cheeks. We believe with all our heart that we love him, that we would give our life for him. But John says this, man, if you believe that you love God whom you've not seen, but you don't love those in your immediate circle here that you can see, and you're not demonstrating love there, then don't pretend to love the one that you don't have to engage every day. You also thought maybe that you loved your high school sweetheart. You might have thought that you were in love several times in your life, but God throughout our life teaches us what love truly is and what it looks like. So I want you to consider John's teaching here. You can't say you love God whom you've not seen if you're not loving your neighbor whom you experience every single day. Also, you can't pretend to love the foreigner, the stranger, the alien, those that are suffering in this world, those that go without food, those that go through extreme pain in this world. You can't pretend to love them, even though tears flow down your cheeks, even though with all your heart you believe it. But if you don't love your family, if you're not showing love to the person across the aisle from you at church, you're not showing love to the person across the yard from you in your neighborhood, you're not showing love to the people in your office, you're not demonstrating love to the people you have to encounter every day. We can't pretend to love those that we don't encounter every day. And that's why this teaching, love your neighbor as yourself, really primarily applies to those that we have to engage and encounter every single day. I hope that's challenging to you. I know it's challenging to me. But in the end, the Christian life is a life that must be lived in love. Love for God, love for our neighbor, love for the stranger, love for the alien. God's love must be manifest in every area of our life. John said in 1 John 3:18, "My dear friends, let's not love with words or speech, but in actions and in truth."
And the coach has decided to challenge this play. He has tossed down the red flag.
Don't forget they have to have good reason to overturn the official's decision.
After review the play,